Now, I have the honor to speak with you about the changes in business culture and what this means to the companies. First of all, I would like to start with a quote. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change, said already Charles Darwin, and it fits well in today when we talk about change and how we want to deal with it. That is the agenda for today. We will first talk briefly about the company, the EPC GmbH, then about digitization, business culture change, and the topic change management must of course not be missing. And then we look at a bit of bad practice before we come to the end. So let's start with my company. My name is Alexander Eggers. I'm calling from Germany, and here you see our adoption specialist team with the change management consultants. We are around 30 people, and we are doing classic infrastructure as we do modern workplace with Office 365, and of course Teams is a big part in our doing. And so this is the team, what we're doing here in Germany for adopting teams in SMB structures. So first we start with digitization, and we have a look at it. And of course, you know, but I just show in one case here that we have also changes in business, like who's the world's largest taxi company who does not own taxis? Of course, it's Uber. Or the world's largest housing brokers that have no real estate, it's Airbnb. So we're talking about changes in business. We're talking about changes in platform, in internet, and also we talk about digitization in our private life, our change in life. When we chatting via WhatsApp. Also, my mother's 75 years old, loves using WhatsApp, Skype and FaceTime bridges long distances to families and friends. And I remember in 4 or 5 years ago, I've been on the Autobahn in Germany driving 200 kilometers per hour or 130 miles per hour, of course not on the driver's seat. And I was doing FaceTime with my little daughter, and I could not imagine that I could do this before, 5 years before. So what we can do is really has an impact on our life. Status and images on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, our CV and business networking we're doing via LinkedIn, and all the digital networks across areas of all our life. Holiday booking, dating, fitness tracker. We have the extreme expensive German kitchen machine, Thermomix. I don't know if you have that in Europe somewhere else, but also this kitchen machine has Wi-Fi on board and Alexa. So everything has an impact in our life, what means in digitization. All about every zone and no matter which device. So then there's a Generation Z, vintage, 95 to 2010, which is on the road in a completely different way. No everyday life without digital communication. Significantly more digital than we have been so far. Also better educated than any vintage before it. And finally, they deal with autonomous vehicles, artificial intelligence, voice controller, mixed reality quite differently than was the case so far. This means that there's a generation that has an expectation to the companies because of its degree of digitization. But these companies first have to recognize and accept this. Little story, think about a 16-year-old teenager who has to work in your firm, and it comes in and you show him his desk with a PC, keyboard, mouse, and a phone on the desk. And this teenager just knows voice recognition and touchscreen. So what happens there? I was at least at a Teams workshop that we held for a medium-sized company in Germany, and the boss welcomed me with the words, "I'm only there for the first 20 minutes, then I have to go back into appointments." And I asked him to stay at least at the beginning because I'm going to talk about changes in culture. In the end, he stayed in the workshop for the whole 5 hours, and I asked him afterwards why he didn't go. He replied, Mr. Eggers, what you said, there is such an extreme change in the way we work that as the CEO, I definitely need to know about that. Well, it's a nice statement because this manager understood what I said, and he also understood how important it is for his company. In 2015, Deloitte had a survey and they said by 2020, 50% of all employees are digital natives who are online around the clock and work as you like. I already put this slide in the company's workshops. Well, we know it will not be 50% in 2020. But when we have a look in the future and look to the millennials, so the next generation after Generation Z, it's by 2025. The millennials will account for over 75% of workers, 75% of workers. And they seek more open collaborative workspaces, a greater sense of purpose, and a deeper connection to their company's mission. So there are coming generations that are they're really different to what we have before. And what does it mean for the companies? They need to adopt it to bring it to they need to adopt it and bring about the changes. And the great difficulty is to take all generations of employees on the journey. But if you don't do that, the company's journey will end. I'm around 50 years old, and I come to companies that have employees around 20 years old, and they understood using Teams in 3 minutes and start using it immediately. And on the other side, there are employees around 60 years old who do not use Teams. They don't know why, and they say, using Outlook is okay for me. I don't need anything else. So when you adopt Teams not in the right way, you suddenly have employees using Teams and some not using Teams. The workflow is damaged, and then if the process is critical, you harm the company. And while companies are all unique and you have their own identities, we are seeing common trends affecting the culture of work and employees' expectations on what a modern work environment provides. There's a movement towards transparency in how decisions are made. Organizational structures are becoming more flat. People are on twice as many teams as they were 5 years ago. And of course, the workforce itself is more diverse. For the first time, there are 5 generations together in the workplace, all with different backgrounds in technology and different expectations about communication and collaboration tools. For example, some people are comfortable chatting on a phone, others prefer email or face-to-face. And when we have IT consultants here, I say you have to be like the trusted advisor. And as the trusted advisor, we have to make the situations clear for the customer. We have to tell them that these changes will come and they have to battle for the best employees because we don't have enough employees. And we have to present solutions to the customer, of course. We help customers to implement these solutions. And overall, we have to do it before the customer itself notices that he has to change something. So when you're a consultant, go out and help your customers. So we get back to the next point. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. You've probably heard the saying before, and it simply tells us what we can have a lot of great strategy, but we just have to be careful with the corporate culture. Otherwise, the strategy will not work. So how strong companies from smart work benefit depends only on the use of respective tools, but also above all, attitude and culture. These are the factors for the digital workplace. And a little quote from Sebastian Perz-Pagiol, a German author and expert in digitization. I say, digitization itself is about 2 things. On the one hand, it is about the technical. On the other hand, it's fundamentally about a completely different way of working together between people. Alexander Birken, CEO of Otto, also clearly says the point. We get the technical part anyway. Challenging is the cultural one. And one of the biggest aspects is that the classical hierarchies are changing, that bosses need to change their own self-image and no longer believe that they know all the answers and always set the right directions. But the leaders begin to humbly understand that they can only solve the challenges of the future if they let employees help to shape them. So we see here, what do companies do? And in 2017, McKinsey had a survey of more than 2,000 executives in all regions. And they say that social tools are more integrated than ever, but older technologies such as phone and email and even fax continue to dominate by far. And I think it has not changed so much since then. The use of social tools promotes communication between employees and self-organizations when the corporate culture allows it. I've been in a firm and we did a Teams workshop, and I talked about using Teams on the mobile phone, and the employees told me that they may not use the mobile phone in the office. And I was a little bit frustrated, and it's just because the CEO did not allow that, because he was thinking they're just chatting or whatever, doing with friends and not working. So when you have this kind of culture, it will be a problem to implement new solutions. And also you can see here, 72% of respondents to a German survey say that the established corporate culture is one of the biggest barriers on the way to digital organizations. So we have to have a look at the corporate culture. And I find this little comic very good. Once he gets this mindset, there's nothing changing him. Change is the big thing we have to talk about. And here we see a survey of employees and their fears. Unfortunately, this graphic is only available in German, but the numbers are easy to read. On average, just over 1 in 2 people are afraid of change, afraid of new software, afraid of digitization. And it's important to know this when you talk about introducing new software solutions like Microsoft Teams, the fear. So what might be a solution, and here's a quote from Claudia Kumanel, head of executive leadership: only those who credibly demonstrate the benefits of digitization to all employees will dissipate the fear of change and create the insight that the innovation will benefit everyone. And so Sebastian also said, like I quoted before, what do you have to do to not make employees sick in the digital transformation? First, they need a high degree of compression. What is happening here? If people do not understand what is happening, but they notice everything changes, then head cinema is created. The more you communicate, the more you can weigh the meaningfulness of change, the calmer people stay. And secondly, people must be able to help shape things. The moment I can help shape, I give a higher degree of meaning to what is happening. And secondly, I enter the neural calmer state. So it is very important to me to point out why the introduction of such a solution is not an IT issue. Coming from IT, I found that when we first introduced Microsoft Teams 2 years ago, we did not do well. We thought a quick look at Microsoft Teams, the chat and the projects are enough to help people understand what to do. But that is not the case at all. It's just because we have a lot of humanity in the game here, partly because of the fears people have. That is, we need other people to introduce such software solutions that have an influence on the way they work, and they can make people feel good. It's very human. So beware, here are the requirements, in my opinion, for Teams consultants. We don't have to talk about this very long, but I think when you are a Teams consultant, you have to have emotional intelligence. You have to think about processes, change management, know-how. We talk about change management in the next slides. Economic know-how, and of course, professional experience. It's nothing to do with IT. Well, here we go. Cultural transformation begins with the personal transformation of the leaders. Organizations don't transform, people do. Richard Barrett already said that. And so we have a look here. As the business landscape changes, a diverse, multi-general workforce can now work anytime, anywhere. Your success depends on your ability to collaborate and drive productivity within teams on the move and located across the world. The successful adoption of new technology requires a behavior change, and change can be hard. Many people find change difficult, and they are likely to resist even changes that will make their lives easier. Many people will continue using what's familiar, no matter what IT advocates. You won't be able to just flip a switch to implement a new technology. Of course, we know that. Instead, you will need to add users' readiness to your technical readiness and take into consideration just who these end users are. Change takes more than learning a new app. It's a fundamentally different way of working. One thing we know from experience, if you don't know where you want to go, you are unlikely to go there. And in our next slides, we'll be diving into the soup of nuts industrial standard methodology for change. Change is a human process that has nothing to do with technology. There's behavioral and neuroscience that educates us about the natural resistance to change. It is critical to anticipate the needs of your users, to communicate with empathy and understanding of their situation, and create solutions that materially improve their situation. Even in doing so, you will encounter natural resistance to change. Here you can see the curve, like the emotions during changes. We come to resistance via denial in the first step, and after the low point, he begins to accept and explore the situation. And at the end, it comes first to the commitment. And this curve can run in different waves. This one is unfortunately in German, but the points are the same. Only the expression of the rashes can be different for each person. You also have to know that. So there are also people who undergo changes quite easily, and just those in which the negative phase is much more pronounced. Furthermore, the length of the phases are different. The top management usually gets along with it faster than the employee at the end of the chain. Also, the knowledge helps because maybe the composition of adoption groups is different, and we have to pick up people with different methods on the journey. Well, change management can be all tasks, measures, and activities that should bring about a comprehensive, cross-departmental, and substantive, far-reaching change to implement new strategies, structures, systems, processes, or behaviors in an organization. And here we see how change management can help to find the right point of going live for new solutions that bring change. The curve is shown here in more detail, but you can see well that the introduction does not take place when the human is still just before the low point of motivation, but only after the knowledge is there that the solution is good and meaningful. So one last quote here. In a staggering ship falls over who stands still and does not move. So this also applies very clearly to the importance of the change processes. You have to move so as not to fall over in a swaying ship. To move in a company so as not to fall over or even get up. So here are 2 slides that may be interesting for one or the other. I do not want to advertise here, but only describe how we have implemented this as a service provider with the topic of adoption and change management. We have 3 workshops with different content. About the start with the first group or smaller companies with the executives, we look at teams and make their own first attempts. To do this, we analyze where the pain points are in the company and think about how, for example, teams can help you. In the second workshop, we train the champions, who will later help to train the users and, above all, help with the process of introduction. These come from the various departments and are not the executives at best. Employees are reluctant to ask the supervisor for help comprehensively. Finally, we do the training for the end users. The special thing is that we also offer the same workshop for the subject of change management. And here, always parallel to the team workshop, also support the executives. How to better communicate changes for the employees, or just in workshop 2, like the champions, learning methods to can handle this. And lastly, we even offer this for the end users so that they themselves understood better why they act and think as they do. So we come to the summary. I'm a little bit fast, I see, but I'm sorry. 3 concrete steps to act. Depending on what duties you have as a consultant or as a user, the companies, especially in the SMB segment, have to change in order to remain competitive, in order to gain workforce. Think about this 16-year-old teenager from the beginning. I told you. A good strategy brings nothing if the culture does not allow it. And cultural changes cannot be forced. So you have to go deeper and accept these are tedious processes. Study the subject of change management. We, who come from IT, have so far had little to do with it. But to take people along, this is fundamentally important. So I hope, one last quote. It can't work, so let's try it. It is possible, so go for it. Okay, my last slide. It was a pleasure for me to talk to you. I hope everything went well. And please rate the presentation here. And if you have any questions, come over in the chat and we can talk about it. Or go to LinkedIn. I have my LinkedIn community. I'm publishing very many things about Teams, or my email address. So thank you very much. And I hope you have the last great sessions here. And thank you for participating. Bye-bye.